if you don't prune your roses, you are not going to get flowers. This rose bush got cut down from being way up here to being way down here last fall. But it still needs some attention. So, for instance, here, this is actually cut too high up, and also the slant of the cut isn't at a 45-degree angle, which it should be. It needs to be sharper. And the reason why it needs to be sharper is so that the rainfall can go and get shedded off because of the slant, so it's not actually hitting on the rose wood itself. Also, the cut is too high up. What you want to be looking for is to cut about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch maximum above a little place like that, where there's a little shoot. You also want to cut where there's a shoot going outwards, away from the inside of the bush to the outside of the bush, so that it's not crowding itself, it's not growing inside and causing lots of problems later with canes hitting on each other and so on with the growth. So you want it nice and bushing out all the time. So I'm going to cut this at a 45-degree angle, about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch up, and I'm cutting away in a slope so that when the rain comes, it's not pounding down on the cane, but it's sliding off that slant where you cut. You see I've got a nice clean cut there. You don't want a ragged cut, you want a nice clean cut. So your pruning shears have to be very sharp to make a nice clean cut. If you have a ragged cut, then your plant has a chance of getting diseased and insects are going to be able to get in there very easily. You don't want that. So there's a nice 45-degree angle cut. You've got your shoot going to the right-hand side outside of the plant, which is nice, so that's going to have a chance to grow this way and hopefully create another cane and lots of flowers. So this is Elmer's glue. It might seem peculiar to use school Elmer's glue, but it's perfect for covering over the cracks of your rose cuts so that no disease gets in and no insects can actually get in. So that's a really great thing. Okay, so I've put a blob of Elmer's glue on that cut, which will seal the cut so there's no possibility of any disease getting in there now, which is really great. Okay, now don't bother to use the glue on all your cuts, only on very wide canes, this size and up really, otherwise, you know, first of all it costs you a fortune. But you wouldn't do it on your shrub roses where you've got thinner canes, or perhaps on your rugosas you wouldn't need to either. So it's really on the nice thick canes that you need to do that, the nice strong sturdy ones, okay? I'd like to now continue showing you on this. We have some dead stuff here. I'm going to trim this off, and I'm going to trim this right at the edge because it's got nothing growing on it anyway. So I'm going to cut just here to get that little piece of dead stuff off. There's also dead cane here, which is hollowed out actually, it's very dead. I'm going to cut that like that. And I actually am going to cover that with some Elmer's because I don't want insects getting into that. They love rotting wood. So this seems like it's completely dead to me, but I'm just going to check it because it might not be dead all the way round, all the way down. Yes, you see how it's all gone brown? There's no green there at all. So I'm betting that, in fact, yeah, I can take this all the way down. So I just cut this dead piece out here, and that's really important because later on when all of these start to grow, this could really impede and in fact get diseased very easily, and the disease could then grow into the rest of your good wood. So you really just don't want that there. There's another piece here which is also dead. I'm going to cut it right down here. And that you really don't matter if it's not a clean cut particularly. I'm going to get rid of all these dead things here. Cut them all out because they could just impede your bush later on. Then there's another piece here. I'm not sure whether that is alive or dead all the way down. I'm just going to check it by cutting it gradually. And that looks like dead as a dodo all the way down. So that's coming out completely too, right at the root down there on the ground. So then I have all these bits. By the way, do wear good gloves that have got leather palms, okay? Then you won't get thorns in you. And I'm going to cut another one here that seems dead to me. I'm going to cut it just here, yes, and it's still a little bit of dead root here, but I think I'm going to leave it there. This one also needs cutting, and that's at the wrong angle. Here's my little shoot coming out here, so I need to go about 1/2 inch above it and cut it at a 45-degree angle again, and get my glue and put a little glue on the top there. I do have another piece of dead stuff just here to cut off. So I'm going to come round here now. Careful not to tread on the rest of my plants. There we go. And again, make sure that your equipment's really nice and sharp. And that's it for that little guy. And hopefully we'll have some beautiful red roses in a couple of months. So I wanted to show you this bush right here. And when this rose bush is fully grown, it's up to the top of the window. So it's just absolutely gorgeous and full of beautiful red roses. And in the fall it got cut down, as you can see, 2/3 of it got cut away. But now we have to do the job of pruning out lots and lots of canes from in here because it's totally overcrowded. And if you have too many canes brushing up against each other, first of all it's going to create disease, but more importantly you're not going to get any air in the bush, and because you have no air in the bush you will get lots and lots of black spot and powdery mildew and all those horrible things that roses get. Now I don't use sprays, so I really have to make sure to go in and take away a lot of these canes in here to create the air so that I'm not going to get those diseases. This little guy, you don't generally take 2/3 of it off ever. As you can see, it's very small anyway. But what you do want to do is take away the stuff that's really happened over the winter, which is it's rotted out a lot of its canes, and you need to get rid of all of those. So I'm just going to show you. This one is dead. This one here is dead. Here's dead. This top of this one, the top of this one. It's all dead, it all has to come out. So I'm going to do that right now. I think she's done. Okay. Okay, this has beautiful little yellow roses about this size, absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know if you can see, but we've already got buds coming. You do not want to chop this in the springtime at all, otherwise you're just going to lose all of those flowers. So the only time to prune this is in the fall, ever. Okay, the rest of the time you need to leave it, otherwise you're not going to get any flowers come spring, or come just after the spring. And it's absolutely gorgeous. But you will still have to cut out some dead stuff. And with a bush like this, you really need to wait until the leaves are actually coming along so that you can see where there aren't any leaves and where you can actually cut out the dead wood. Now we're going to look at a completely different rose, and these are rugosa roses. They're very, very different. For starters, they have these, after they've bloomed, they have these huge rose hips on them, which I actually leave for the birds, and the birds love them. At the end, in the springtime, what you'll come up and you'll find is that some of them are still hanging on the tops of your rugosa bushes. These have to come off. Last summer, these were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beautiful roses, and then they went to huge rose hips, which then you can see they've been eaten by the birds, and now we're left with this kind of awful looking piece of dead stuff on the top of the rugosa bush that's going to be this summer's rose blooms. So you want to cut that off, and it doesn't matter how you cut that, simply because the roses themselves are sheltering that piece of the stem, and so they're not going to disease so much, so you can just snip straight across, it doesn't matter. Also what happens with rugosas is you get a lot of dead wood. If you look down here, you can see all of this is dead. Now you do have to wait until you've got some greenery on there to see what's dead and what isn't. So this is dead, and that is dead, and that is dead, and that is dead, and there's another rosehip top to cut off, there's another rosehip top to cut off, there's more here. So quite a lot of work actually with these. But it really pays off if you actually do trim them out. The other thing with rugosas is that they will start to run underground and come up in other places. And eventually they could take over your whole garden. So when that happens, you really have to chase to see, oh, where is there a runner that's coming up somewhere else where I don't want it. You have to pull on that runner, for example. Can I show you over here? This one here came from another bush, probably from over there or over there, and it ran all the way over to here and came up, and here it is all by itself. And so you can really tell that it wasn't part of the original bush because it's tall and all by itself. However, I want it because I've got room for more rugosa roses, so I'm not going to cut it down. If I didn't want it, I could just cut it down at the base, and that would be that. It might regrow itself and then I'd have to cut it again. I'm just going to take its top off. Here's a couple of two dead rose hips that didn't get eaten by the birds. The other thing that plagues them are Japanese beetles. So what I do, because I hate using any sprays and such, is I go around with hot soapy bowl of water in the evening when they're all sleeping, and I brush them into hot soapy water where they get killed pretty much immediately. And I do that every evening. You know, it's kind of become a meditation. Okay, so that's it with rugosas really. They don't mind what soil they live in. They're very hardy. They come back year after year. The rugosas here are at least 15 years old. And they have beautiful roses every single year.